Welcome to Season 10 of CX in the Wild. 10 seasons of conversations with the visionaries who are reshaping the world, one experience at a time. This season, we go further into the minds of those who challenge the status quo and reimagine what's possible. And now, the adventure continues.
All right, welcome back to CX in the Wild. Today we have Kiran Varri. Now, I've been following Kiran for a while on LinkedIn. It's just an honor to have you here. And in Dubai, we're sitting in my Airbnb in Yansun 5. What a crazy, it's almost impossible to get here. Like, I'm surprised you found it. Yes. But Kiran, let's start with who you are and what's keeping you busy these days.
It's a very interesting question, who you are. I think that's rarely asked as well. That's also something that I started probably reflecting upon in the last 5-10 years. Till then, it was complete your education, pick up a job, make enough money so that you take care of your family. To be honest, I was more about myself, but gradually at some point it changed to about the universe and less about me. So now the journey here till the end is going to be about the universe.
I love that you started out that way. I have been on my own existential transformation recently. The saying that keeps running through my mind is, a person lives two lives. The second one starts when they realize they only have one. In this journey, you've been doing a lot in your career. You're very well known in this area of the world. What do you think is your greatest contribution to business, the economy, to GDP? Like, what is it that you feel are your most recent accomplishments in business?
I would say one touch point at a time. I'll first go with from an accomplishments point of view. So for example, every opportunity to make a difference, am I making is the question I ask myself. For example, for our organization, we're looking for an LMS, learning management system. So it was a great opportunity for me. Had I tried to do it like a mock-up, it wouldn't come the way it's best. But glad that the head of the organization handed over that responsibility, and it was amazing learning. I did not know much about LMSs before, but I know what it does. So I jumped into that space, listened to them. I shared a checklist with all the functionality which I felt we needed, and heard out to them all the functionality they said we also would need. So this was the kind of a learning curve for me, value to the organization. And also, most likely, I said to the vendors whom I spoke to, I want to make sure you get your best shot. So I try to get them probably a little bit of a coaching and guiding them as to how they should do that 20 minutes conversation when they present to the boss, so that their best foot forward is ensured. Like we were discussing a while ago, not everyone is made for every space. Unless you get your best salesperson there, you'll not be able to make the best pitch. So I feel my role is of a facilitator, and given every opportunity, I'm today much more ready than ever to not be afraid, but to take it on. Like they say, right, the analogy of a car. If your focus is on the road, the next 100 meters will emerge. And I think while driving back here, I also realized the science also will show you believe in the universe.
Yes, it's true what you're saying. You and I have so many similarities. One person described my personal brand as healing tornado, because I often just come in out of nowhere, swirl around like a crazy storm, and I try to leave every person or situation better somehow. Could be just giving them gifts or teaching them something or being nice to them or doing something for free. I don't really care what it is. I mean, I was always the kind of person that if you asked me for something, you could have it. And, I'll tell you this since we're talking existentially. The reality is that my uncle was really an impactful part of my life growing up. And he was a medic in the Vietnam War, which was not a very easy assignment. And of course, he got assigned that against his will, but he went and did it. And I must have been like 10 years old, a little guy. He was teaching me about life and having had been through these experiences. And he said to me, when you go throughout life, Dennis, there's going to be an emergency. There's going to be something that happens. And I can imagine him picturing himself back in the war. And he said, the moment will happen. And there'll be two kinds of people that you see. People who are helping and people who are not. And he said, be a helper, regardless of what it is. And so I've always tried to live that way. Now, the other side of that is, there's like these East Asian sayings like, when you go into battle, if you assume that you're already dead when you go into battle, it's much easier. And what I think has happened over the course of my life is I've given everything away to the point where I really just live out of my suitcase. I've been living out of a suitcase for like a year now. I really have. You would think that it's this fine line, but I've really come to a place where I've given everything away, so I have nothing to lose. And so my courage to do the unknown, people are always like, how could you do that? I'm like, the only thing I have to worry about is my suitcase. I've given everything else to everyone else, So these are interesting philosophies that I think are difficult when you're younger, but when you're in the collecting and the building phase. But I also am on the phase of, I just want to leave something good behind, And I think towards that, why I'm in customer experience, and we can talk about this. I go places and I ask people, what is customer experience? And they all have a different answer, but I'll tell you my answer. I believe that customer experience is the new operating system for the global economy, because the entire world has customers and the entire world has experiences. And any place that customer experience strategy or planning or action, any organization where it touches, it makes what was once a hierarchy into a matrix. And that matrix stability gives it more connectivity to cultures, to different dollars, dirhams, francs, pounds. It gives you access to different ways of thinking. It gives you access to different economic resources. And I think, here in Dubai, I had a chance to interview the leadership at Over Expo City, and Nadia Verji said this thing that it keeps playing over and over in my head, which is she said, the world no longer wants to live in an echo chamber. Banks don't want to only talk to banks. Universities don't only want to talk to universities. It's becoming a matrixed society. And so customer experience really gives us this opportunity to make a difference economically, culturally. It helps us transform the world for a better place of tomorrow, although we as CXers will not ever really realize it because we're on the beginning of the journey. I think our roles are important. So I'm always appreciative when I hear people like you lead the conversation into this podcast with philosophy. But let's talk about how you're making a difference. What are you working on these days? What have you been learning recently that the audience can learn from?
I'll pick from the latest and then I try to go back depending on the time we have. The latest is I take care of the full-time training for corporate as well as retail batches on Six Sigma. A diverse set of topics like project management, change management, or something that is particularly unique need for the organization. Thanks a lot to ChatGPT as well. That job has become immensely easier.
Oh yeah.
And the learning curve for me has been great. I remember one program where they requested for around 200 slides. They didn't ask. By the time the content was ready, it was almost 200 slides. And it went like a breeze. And I walked out learning so much more. One, preparation. Second, the conversations in the class. So I sense that the value today I'm able to add is utilize technology. I always say that it's a facilitator to enhance the experience of the students. And for all the positive reviews I earned on Google, some maybe they are seeing me much larger than what I am, is that they are enjoying the learning. And I've realized this right from my ITC times. It was a luxury hotels business. If you can make the classroom session engaging, engrossing, edutaining is the word, then the student walks away learned, better recall, and the outcomes are visible. So this is one space in the teaching part that I'm thoroughly enjoying. And rest is, I see a lot of world outside the classroom where like I was standing in your balcony just now, I noticed one gentleman who's the blue-collar employee sleeping at the ground floor. And it sends to me, I took 3 pictures. One is that zoom back, center, and the close-up. And my intention was that what role am I playing in this world where if experience point, as you just said, economics part being kept aside, when experience is the focus we positively impact everything around us, alive, not alive, so the assets we have, resources we have, then I think we're talking about long term, much beyond this. And I think the universe is for the long term, not short term. So the moment we switch the focus from short term to long term, I think we all collectively can add tremendous value. So I see at work, they add value to the training and the consulting and every initiative given to me. And out of work, I enjoy experiencing my surroundings and see how I can add value. Sometimes instantly it comes. Sometimes you pass by, you realize, no, it's not you. I mean, it's self-coaching. Then you come back to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Add value.
The idea of leaving a legacy, Sholto Douglas over at Expo City, he talks about Expo City having a vision of 6 centuries. And certainly that's a big thing to say. And when I think about, if someone came to me and said, yeah, I have a 600-year plan, I would say, well, that's a lot. That's a little extra. But when you're in his shoes, anything less than 500 years we've already done that. We can look back 500 years over cities. He and his teams there, they really do need to be thinking centuries in advance. It's crucial for sustainability, and pretty much everything and you bring up a very wise point, pretty much everything that's alive right now is not going to be alive in that city, but that city will still be there. And so sustainability and thinking about the future and making a positive impact, it is a long range game, but the journey of 10,000 miles starts with this single step. And so it's very true. And I love what you said about learning. I, of course, was a teacher, an instructor over at the University of Wisconsin-Madison teaching digital marketing. And 2 things. What I try to explain to the students from day one is, I'm not here to teach you to do what I do. I'm here to help you think the way I think. Because what I do probably is not even relevant anymore, but thinking these new ways. And the other thing I try to do with students is, and I think this is the most important part for all humans, is the belief that you can. I can't even tell you how many times. So one thing when I grew up, I did graffiti and I draw. So I can draw. So like if you handed me a piece of paper and said, draw you right now, I could draw some resemblance of you, some semblance of you. And people say, wow, you can draw. I can't draw. I wish I could draw. And I say, you can draw. And they're like, no, I can't draw. And I say, you can draw. And they say, I can't draw. And I've had this conversation with some people for decades. And guess what? They still can't draw. So they're right. But what I also will tell you is if you go into a classroom to teach drawing to 30 students who are there to learn how to draw, at the end of the classes, you have 30 people who can draw. They might not draw all the same thing, but every single one of them can draw afterwards. And so the belief that a person can is so important to the future of everything we do. And I think when we create experiences, I think what we're really saying is, yes, you can upgrade your seat. Yes, you can return this item. Yes, you can have that with French fries. I think CXers are about making things can.
I think that brings attention, reminds me of Zappos. When he started the brand, it seems everyone laughed, saying that how can you have a written policy of 1 year, something like that. And he said it's possible. And they said everyone will abuse the feature and you will be bankrupt. And Zappos made history. And they said less than 0.1%. Or someone actually who returns, and the brand is still relevant and taken as an example of legendary customer experience.
Yes. What's on the horizon for you these days? You're working over the next year. What are you going to be focusing on?
I think good question. In fact, in the recent few weeks, this was a thought which randomly popped up, and I was arriving at an understanding that 2025 has to be all about CX, more so because, like we were discussing in the balcony, maybe I'm also a procrastinator on the subject. Often I have so much, I feel it's a potential energy within. I enjoy that I can go around without any structure. I look around, see what's this experience like, how this experience can be better. Like yesterday I was in a supermarket, I will not take the name, one of the largest here. The lady at the checkout was just transactional, the best transactional. I tried to form some connection, no way. And then I was wondering, then am I not better off having a self-checkout than having a human being. So bringing the context back to 2025, so I'm trying to see if I have so much I can give, I can share. That is my responsibility to put it in context, put it in some form of a flexible structure and leave it in the universe so that as many can benefit. As we were discussing about the topic of long term, it does not always have to give you a payback immediately. No, it doesn't. In the long run, when you keep giving, it comes back. And when your necessities are minimal, you are fine.
You make me think, since we're getting all philosophical, I think one of the things that gives me a unique perspective on change management and customer experiences and adaptability is I find that if for all the change that people want to impose and create, I want to make this better. I want to make this faster. I want to make this more efficient. I want to make this whatever. I hear so many of those conversations. And what I also find is those people are very unfamiliar with the nature of change. I live in a continuous search to find some sort of continuity with the universe. For instance, yesterday I had full podcast day planned for tomorrow. This morning, somebody said, people in Abu Dhabi want you there all day. So you're going there all day. And I'm like, no problem. I talked to Joan. Joan's like, everybody tomorrow, we're going to have to pick a different time. Everybody moved times. Now I'm going to Abu Dhabi. I sometimes don't even know for a couple of days that I'm going to be in another country. But when the time comes, I go. And I move with a sense of comfort in the idea that change happens. And I try to understand the nature of the thing. Because when you understand the nature of change, then you know what it's capable of and you can make better profits. And so I take this sort of immersion in change and I apply it strategically to the brands that I work for to illuminate a path that is correctly aligned to the nature of change. So many people want to build change, and you don't build change.
Yeah, I think amazing point you mentioned. The moment you are comfortable with the idea that everything is going to change, I think a lot makes a difference. Take example of the generative AI. It shuffled the deck. Suddenly the world, for a moment at least, saw that end of a dominance of a Google or arrival of a new set of brands which will drive the journey and all. So brands will benefit immensely the moment they prepare their teams. Change will happen. The moment you accept, and it will be unpredictable. And once I'm prepared for anything unpredictable, I'm willing to receive it and convert it as an opportunity.
Some wise person, I think it was a cabbie, actually, a taxi driver the other day told me, chaos creates opportunity. And it's so true. I love that you said that, being open to change. And, so let's put this in practical terms. I recently have had an assignment to increase the share of voice for a global brand. And at the time I inherited the project, we were in last place. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're going to start out in last place? Like, they were terrified for me. And I thought it was so funny because what I thought to myself was about these critics was, you don't understand the nature of change. Now I'm in the best position because the odds of me being able to keep it in last position are like way worse than getting it up out of last position. And so understanding that, just that simple dynamic, that their perception is it's hard. And I'm like, you don't understand how change works. I'm in the right position. All I have to do is be a catalyst. And then the brand will move to second, up one spot, probably going to move up 1 point just with no action, but 2 or 3 if I understand, the change. And so I try to capitalize on that, like surfing, Is that your phone? No, just this is why we call it CX in the wild. I've had my phone ring and everything, and the odds of it picking up, it's just change. So I think that's right. So being open to change, adapting to change, understanding the nature of change is so important to help organizations navigate the water of customer experience. What do you think, if you had advice, because you teach so many people so many things, what advice do you have for our audience? What should they be thinking about in 2025? We're coming up on the end of the year. What do you think people should be thinking about?
I think 2044 definitely taught us and prepared us better. that to be prepared for any change that's possible. Post the pandemic, we saw something very different world during the pandemic. And post-pandemic with the generative AI and other technologies, we have become, I think, comfortable to receive anything that comes our way. But still, as you shared, there are several of our brothers and sisters who like the world to be the same. I think those members need to take note that it's better to be willing to receive anything that comes your way in terms of change, opportunity that it brings along. See the brighter side, I would say. And if we need to condition ourselves, if you don't have that belief today, explore it, reflect upon it. And I'm sure eventually majority will have the buy-in. I am better off being ready to receive change rather than being in that, we talk about who moved my cheese.
Yeah.
In that room and wish the cheese will be placed again. Trust me, the cheese will not be placed, and we will enjoy the journey if we are prepared for anything.
2025 really does needs to pay attention to itself because change is accelerating. The matrix structure of the world is going to make it so things like the pandemic, if anything, the pandemic was just the universe's way of preparing us for global change overnight. OpenAI, same thing. Entire global economies are going to change overnight. I work a lot in South Africa. People are like, why would you go down to Africa? And again, it's because I understand the nature of change. Many do not. So South Africa is the greatest place in the world to be right now because it has 50% unemployment. And people are like, what? And I'm like, hear me out. If you're in a country that has, let's say, 10% unemployment, let's just say let's change that to you have 10% of your people who can be applied to the new thing. South Africa has 50% of their people can be applied to whatever this new global change is. They've got all the resources. They've got the mountains, the skies, the streams, the waters, all that are still here. Those things that you were talking about that are not alive, but the people who are alive, the ones who are the most ready, the largest group of people on earth, one of the largest groups of people on earth are ready just to step into whatever this global change is that's going to happen. It's like, for me, it's like being on the frontier of a whole new universe with 500,000 people just ready to go.
I think from what you're sharing, that is just, I think it keeps resonating through the entire conversation that you're seeing the brighter side, the opportunity of what several are seeing the negative side. So it's all about the context and my choice. How would I like to see the situation? They say, right, glass half full or half empty, irrespective of where the debate goes. So the moment we start responding to change with a mindset that there's a saying, right, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, both are true. You will make it both happen and you will validate. So it's all about choosing which side. And as a race, and I feel we have a responsibility to collectively choose the right side and maximize the impact, because there's nothing to gain on being on the negative side.
It's true. Reminds me of the way I raised my children. As you can imagine, I'm a very unconventional father. I have a very close relationship with my children. I love them. We talk a lot. But when they were young, I gave them their independence as early as possible. But I said, you have 2 rules to live by. That's it. All the rest of the rules, I really don't care about. You want to break the furniture, mom's not going to be happy, but I'm not going to be upset. My 2 rules were this. Number 1, don't hurt other people. And number 2, don't hurt yourself. And so those are easy guideposts. But this was the lesson. The true lesson is, in life, you will be put into a position when you have to choose between the 2 of those. It's easy when you only have to pick one. But when you're in the face of, do I hurt the other person or do I hurt myself? What do you do? And I said, what we do is in that one instance, we take one for the team. We take the loss. We let the other person win. We give them the last piece of bread. We give them the last slice of pizza. We let them get onto the bus and we'll miss this bus. Whatever it is, when you're faced with that, you take the choice to take the loss yourself. And I think that, to me, is the difference between good people and evil people. What's your response to that?
I think it's all about aptly shared. It's about being the one who demonstrate the change that you would like to see. We tell everyone, this is what to do, this is how you should do this. But the minute I get an opportunity to demonstrate that change, live that change, what I do, irrespective of who's watching, makes that difference. And in the example, in the one what you shared as well, is that by leaving that, let's say, by doing what is good for the universe, one, you are living the best purpose that you can live for. And two, as they say, right, when you give back something, you get back multiples of it. I'm not saying do it because of that. Do it because you would want to do that. Yeah. And leave it to the universe. I have experienced it. I have benefited from it. It will always come back. It's karma, whatever the term you want to give it.
All right. I think you summed up this entire podcast perfectly by saying, be the change that you want to see happen. CX, bankers, retailers, whatever role you're in an organization somewhere, if everyone just became and exemplified the change that they want to see happen, we'd win.
If I may, I'll just add a short example of a real instant where, in fact, it's one of my, I think, YouTube that shorts or something, is I was meeting a good friend of mine who worked in an ex-organization for a very long time, marketing research. And he got an opportunity, he was changing jobs, so we were having dinner together. Then I said, what triggered this decision finally? Because I knew he was contemplating but not deciding. Then he explained that on one of the instance, he was taking care of his mother. She was not well and admitted to hospital. And he got a call from his, not an immediate, but a dotted line leader, and inquiring about the progress of a project which had a deadline. All he wished was that he should be given that few days so he can take care of his mother, because there was no one else to take care of her, and come back and complete the job. He was startled when he heard the response from this dotted line manager. When my father passed away, I wasn't given the space in the organization to kind of go through that and come back. Why would I give it to you? That literally froze me. That talk so much about, it's my opportunity. I will now be that change so that 10, 20 years down the lane, we have wonderful workplaces.
Yes.
Great companies. So opportunity, we all should, I think, reflect upon it. And often if you pause and reflect upon self-conduct, I think we will start taking better decisions.
Kiran, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's just been an honor to speak to you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. It was unlike what I expected, but I think we kind of picked up something which is elevated to everything we do as humans. And if we can connect at that level as a race and human race, I'm sure the rest will be taken care of.
Thank you for being part of this journey with us. We hope these conversations challenge your thinking and inspire you to explore new paths. There's so much more to discover. Keep listening, dive into more episodes, and let's continue this adventure together.